we wait too long sometimes to share with people how they impact us.
Yeah.
There's great comments made at funerals, and they're very moving. But I wonder if there's a challenge there for us to do that when folks are alive and we have an opportunity to do that in person.
Welcome to the Crucible Project Podcast. The Crucible Project is a nonprofit organization committed to creating a world of men and women who live with integrity, grace, and courage, helping them to fulfill their God-given purpose. This podcast will discuss important and sometimes difficult topics while delivering practical life applications with men and women who are currently practicing this work. We are igniting Christ-like change in men and women through experiences of radical honesty and grace.
Want to just touch on in the 2-year group program that there are additional weekends, and we could be here for another 4 hours going through all of it. But the weekends have which have you done, and maybe one or two takeaways that came up for you.
So part of the kind of the 2-year package is you have access to the second level weekends, and those have been impactful. Our cohort, our guys, has completed all 4. So
okay,
yeah.
So you've done the mission and purpose, a sexuality and a leadership 1 and leadership 2, or leadership the dark side and leadership joy.
Yes.
Yeah. So
we finished with joy, which was perfect.
Yeah. It's like someone planned these things, right? It's
some smart people.
Some people have been through it before, and yeah. So a couple takeaways for you.
I mean, each weekend had its own flavor and depth of. But I think just trying to summarize these things it can be difficult. But it's what's coming to mind. It's a process. There's a lot there. There's and just understanding more of how God has made me, what He's made me for, and how I show up in different situations, and what motivates me. And we talked earlier. Does my walk match my talk? Am I living authentically? And we kind of joked, once we're finished all the 2 years, we're gonna be just like Jesus. It's like, well,
I was like, are you gonna go walk on the water at the beach instead of get into it?
Right. Get a boat. But no, it's just part of the process. It continues, and I've been able to look at some wounds that have, as I mentioned before, bled into adulthood and haunted me or still haunt me. But I feel like it's just helped to give me more of a focus and a purpose in life.
Yeah.
And life is, I want to talk about the cliche of cliches. Life is short. But you see that around. You see, I don't know about you and your circles, but you see people, you see death, you see, there's no, people are getting, in my circles, getting older and approaching some of those critical years, and there's no guarantees. And I think sometimes, I know I live like, I've got this long range plan, and that's all great. And of course, it's good to have some planning, but not taking advantage of what can I do today? How can I live as God wants me to live today? What am I doing? And how am I sharing joy? What's my footprint in the world? What am I going to start? You start thinking about things like legacy and those memories. Some good practices of what do I want people to be saying at my funeral, as dark as that sounds. I, along with everybody out there, doesn't want to think about that.
the entire culture, perhaps. Yeah. Yeah.
But I read this. It's gonna haunt me now. This book. The name might come to me, but he was a Jewish man living outside of the Boston area, and that's my part of I'm up in New Hampshire, and so where he lived, the area, one of the Boston neighborhoods, was familiar, and he just had this anti uh, societal way about death, and he
Hmm.
approached it
Hmm.
interesting. Like he talked about it with his family and with his kids, and then he planned essentially a funeral live, you know, where he was still live and alive,
Interesting.
and yeah, and like wow, and he,
I
you know,
mean, is he like in a coffin, or what's the setup
no,
here?
no, I mean he's living.
But I mean, he's like lying in a coffin
Oh,
alive
I
and
mean
letting
he's just
everyone.
yeah, yeah. Just I think he's just sitting in his, you know, his favorite rocking
Okay. Yeah.
chair,
Yeah.
but people just shared, you know, their
Hmm.
experience with him and their thoughts of him, and it's like wow, that's
Hmm.
pretty interesting. Like, because we kind of just want to hide it and forget about it, and yeah, we'll deal with that when the person's no longer here. But you know, that one of the points of that too is we wait too long sometimes to share with people how they impact us. Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah.
there's great comments made at funerals, and they're very moving. But I wonder if there's a challenge there for us to do that when folks are alive and we have an opportunity to do that in person.
Yeah. That's quite an exercise. I wonder, if I'm the one, who's supposed to be dead at the live funeral, but it's also a challenge for the people, like you said, who are there sharing that maybe haven't shared those things before or in front of anyone else or in front of that person.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it's pretty vulnerable.
uh, yeah, yeah, a challenge there. It was interesting. I remember you saying as you're going into this and looking at, what the next part of your life might look like, and connecting that with
Yeah,
legacy, and then hearing you talk about joy and letting people know right now the love that they have, and just kind of connecting those dots from the very beginning of the journey up to now. That those are really beautiful. That's really powerful and impactful for me to hear. Every man's work is part of my
mm,
work too. Yeah, I'm challenged and encouraged through all of that. Yeah, so thank you
great, great.
um,
Oh yeah, you're welcome.
for sharing that. So, uh, one quick rabbit trail before we get into the coaching. Um,
Sure.
so your wife has been a counselor for many
Yeah,
for a while.
yeah,
I don't know how long.
decades. Yeah, yeah,
Decades. Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. And I can't remember. Did she do a weekend or did
Yeah,
she have
yeah,
her own week?
she
Okay.
did. She did. I'll flub up the actual month and year, but yeah, it's within the last couple of years she did it. She did a woman's weekend.
And yeah, so I of course would love to hear her experience and to hear the couple's experience together. Um, so I'm just going to plant that seed. Um, that
Hmm.
if she's interested in being interviewed, and then to get the two of you together. Yeah, especially with where you're at in the stage of life, and
Yeah,
um, but for you, what was kind of your experience, or what landed for you as she got out of yeah, she came back from her weekend and came back into your marriage. What struck you?
it did strike me as how deep it went for her.
Hmm.
I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure it was going to resonate. Um, well, I knew it was going to. That's not right. I knew it was going to resonate, but I don't know how knew how deeply.
Hmm.
And she having just a maybe an extra layer of challenge when because of her profession.
Sure.
So just even feeling, you know, we talked about being in 100% and
Hmm.
being vulnerable and sharing some of that messiness and stuff, and that can be a challenge for a counselor because you know they're all brought up in the school of, you know, you don't share, you know, you don't give anything away of your own person,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's how they're taught in the, at least in the you know, the secular schools and the
Well,
master's
and
programs and
how
stuff.
else could you survive for decades? I wonder. So yeah, so that makes some sense to me.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, there's an implied off switch somewhere there that you're supposed to have, but no,
Hmm.
she and she was ready. You know, she's similar age bracket. don't want to give it away. Otherwise, I risk condemnation.
Fall back,
Um,
yeah, fall out.
but yeah, I think she had heard and seen enough, and um, you know, if it's saw something in me, it's only because of God. But maybe she did see something in me that was a glimmer of light that hmm, yeah, maybe this could impact me too. And
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
talked to some folks that she knew that had done the weekend, and yeah, decided. Now for her, it was important that she do it in a different geographical location, um, where she wasn't known, and and that's what's great about Crucible. There's initial weekends spotted throughout the country, so it makes it very viable for someone like her who wants to
Yeah,
get out.
anonymity was really important for me. I didn't
Was
know
it?
anyone on my weekend, and I know people who go together, and
Sure.
it's been very important for them to go through an experience like that together.
Yeah.
And father and sons and all sorts
Yeah.
of combinations can all be on the same weekend, and it's always up to the participants.
Yeah.
What
100%.
is helpful for them. So I just want to throw that in there for the listeners. But yeah, and also, can I just touch on,
Yeah.
your wife who's a counselor saw something in you, and that's its own testimony. Um, to that at least helped or moved her towards her own weekend experience. That, yeah, just how
Yeah.
transformative these things are in our lives and marriages. So yeah, sorry, go ahead. So she goes
Yeah.
to another
Yeah.
place.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, just um, and really, she's met some wonderful women,
Mm.
ladies that she's in groups with, and she has done. She's led a couple of exploration groups.
Groups, yeah, yeah. Just kind of the
So,
exercises that might help people get to a weekend.
yep. So she's led a couple of those, and that has resulted in a number of people, including some of our own clients,
Oh wow.
going on initial weekends and being impacted. So, as a counselor, she just really sees so much benefit in the weekend for people, and it's helped her with a new. We talked about new language, like a different language, and when you've been doing something for 25 years, um, it's been a real bright light for her. It's really
Mm.
energized her
Mm-hmm.
in just a really unique way. Um,
Mm.
and so she'll be going. Well, I don't want to give her itinerary, but she's
Yeah.
going to be doing a second level weekend next month.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so she's real excited for that, and she's done a growth group. She's in a growth group, so she's jumped in
Yeah,
hook, line, and sinker. And a lot of this is
that's awesome.
is interesting how God works, because a lot of this has kind of come up as we've recently become empty nesters. So that
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of different layers of where we are in this season of life, and some big transitions, but we're very grateful that God's kind of opened this door for both of us, and of course it's helped us in our communication. I think the biggest thing I feel today is I just feel just much more patient, less judgmental, willing to listen, how to care for myself, how to make sure I'm not stretching, burning candle at both ends, and
Yeah.
that bleeds into our relationship. So, I mean, it's going to happen. There's seasons of that, but trying to find, the that elusive balance word we all talk about, but trying to find that
Mm.
right balance. And it feels like somehow her and I have found some new ground, some just real how we speak to each other, and
Hmm.
yeah, view each other has been enriching. Yeah, it's
I,
it's it's been great.
it sounds beautiful, and I yeah, I don't know uh, about the empty nester, but I have seen from the side, it's fertile soil for
Mm,
beautiful things, and for for the weeds to sprout up, and for
absolutely.
divorces and separations and
Yeah.
other ugly things.
Yeah,
It's a
absolutely.
challenging time. Yeah.
You see
So
people been married 20, 25, 30 years getting separated. It breaks my heart.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, I just want to reinforce how beautiful I think that is, that you're both, because it is work. It's not just like
Hmm.
roses sprouted out of the ground with no thorns.
No,
So I salute you both for doing that work.
two thorns get married, it doesn't produce roses. But
um,
you learn how
yeah,
to deal with those pricklers.
yeah, yeah, and
Mm,
yeah, I heard heard more patience from you, and my story there is dealing with your own thorns. Yeah,
yeah,
a friend said something that I thought was so beautiful, and she said, any work that we will do on ourselves is a gift we give to the people who love us.
love it,
Yeah, and I was
100%.
like,
Yeah,
oh man, that's so good.
that's so good.
Makes it easier to love me, and that's part of my stuff. So
Yeah,
moving into to the final part here of the coaching world. So, um, yeah, what stage are you in your 2 year group where you're like, oh, okay, I'm interested in coaching, because it sounds like those are overlapping right now.
yeah, they absolutely are overlapping. Yeah, so I think I started off kind of going back about 5 years, and this is kind of when some things started sprouting about doing something impactful in the second, let's call it the second half,
Hmm.
whenever or whatever that looks like, and God knows I don't. I wish he would tell me, but
Yeah.
probably not. Yeah, part of that was, um, you know, I think I was talking about counseling and how that could be something, given my makeup, how God's wired me. I think that could have been something I could have stepped into. But then a friend of mine who I was meeting with regularly, she told me about the world of coaching. And so that's something maybe you wanna check out. She thought I could potentially be good at it, and kind of put the bug in my ear. And then I hired my own coach.
Yep.
This is actually a different woman out of Kansas City who I got plugged into, and she was great. And so I wanted to see what coaching, the world of coaching, looked like. So I was a client for a year and a half,
Hmm.
and then I started to kind of take it more seriously, and God planted some of those seeds. That possibly this is something that I should continue pursuing, or at least stepping through. Usually when I'm proceeding through a process, like, okay, God, I feel like this is you nudging me, and you're opening this door. Please close the door as soon as I'm not following. Is kind of my overriding prayer. Like,
Hmm.
if I'm stepping anywhere that I shouldn't be, get me out of that minefield.
Uh, hmm.
Because I don't want to be where I'm not wanted or needed. So
Hmm.
it's kind of, maybe that's a negative type of prayer, but it also is with the positive prayer that I feel like this is a good thing for me. It's fitting my wiring and my makeup. So those are all kind of the positives that's pulling me. So yeah, being coached, I saw the value of it. I was probably like anybody out there who's never heard of, someone says coach, I think of, like, I go back to my high school basketball, or yeah, that's what comes to mind. Like, oh,
Yeah.
coach. Okay, so yeah, and there's a lot of different words for it. There's executive coaching, there's
Hmm.
leadership coaching, there's life coaching, but essentially it's all around helping people. And there's crucible concepts in there as well, which is so cool. Again, God's pulling all these things together, but helping people
Hmm.
get to where they want to go. What do they want? What are they trying to achieve, and what are the things that are blocking them from getting what they want?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that could be anything, yeah, from weight loss to career to moving from success to significance in life.
Hmm.
So, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off
No,
there.
no, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, no.
I'm always curious and ready to jump in. And then you gave some examples. I was like, oh, that's great. So the difference between a life or an executive or a leadership, and there's different titles there, but kind of, yeah, whatever people wanted. And then you listed off what some of those were. So what was one of the things that you jumped into coaching for initially, aside from just kind of seeing what it was?
Yeah, yeah. I jumped into it probably initially. I was starting to unpack this. For me, it was second half of life adventure, and trying to really uncover that rock. Like, is there something there? And
Hmm.
so a lot of my initial coaching with this person was focused So we did. She had me do some strengths, like I did a strengths assessment. Yeah, which is okay. Let's first be clear on how God's made you, how God's wired you. What,
Mm.
where should you be leaning into? We really we spend a lot of time trying to correct our weaknesses when
Mm.
the strengths philosophy is manage your weaknesses, but lean more into your strengths. And that was something that was new to me. So
Mm.
did a strengths assessment, uncovered. You may have seen people's, they list sometimes in their email signature or something, they'll list their top 5 strengths.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
yeah, I don't know if you ever seen like influencer or contacts or, yeah, I've seen
Interesting.
people. Yeah. So the whole thing is there's 34 strengths. And when you do a strengths assessment, usually, it'll spit out your top 5 primarily and secondarily your top 10. So you can kind of, it really helps to see big picture. Okay, is the work I am doing lining up with who God's made me to be? And that's the most powerful piece. Is the ministry I'm doing? Should I be a leader or should I be a independent contributor? What's best for me and my makeup. So kind of stepping into that self awareness, and then from that big picture, like, okay, still thinking about coaching as a possibility. Does coaching match line up with some of those strengths? And
Yeah.
in my case, it did. So
Yeah.
again, that was a door, that is creaking open a little bit wider.
Mm.
And then I got to the place where there was, enough excitement and energy in me about it to actually sign up for a program that I completed last spring. So that's kind of my first big, you know, line that I crossed, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so
Mm-hmm.
so coaching, the negative you're going to hear about it. The challenge is it doesn't have like a national board or kind of overseer
Mm.
compliance wise. Like if you're in the world of psychology or counseling, you usually, you know you have a
Yeah.
certain minimum of credits you need to keep up, and there's testing and all that. So recently, I don't know, I guess the last 10 years, International Coaching Federation
Mm-hmm.
is kind of become the standard bearer for coaches, and they used to have 11 core competencies that they the last year or two refined to 8. So
Okay.
there's these 8 core competencies that any coach worth their salt really should be very aware of and what they're aiming for. So it doesn't mean you're cookie cutter, but contrary, there's all kinds of coaching and all kinds of coachees. But what I appreciate about it is there's certain standards, there's certain ethical
Mm-hmm.
standards, there's certain practice standards that we should be following, it's and I've really appreciated that because I'm probably tend to be like on the rules side of things. So
Mm.
if I know what the rules are, and I feel good about that. And anybody who's thinking about coaching, I always encourage, is what kind of training has your coach done? Do they follow ICF guidelines?
Right.
And so that's sometimes my comeback for people who are a little bit challenged about using a coach because um, the comeback is, well, anybody can hang a shingle and become a coach, and there's
Yeah.
some truth. There's some truth to that, but there's also, there's also without too much interference from government. Don't necessarily want to go down that road, but
Yeah.
it is up to the consumer, which not always the worst thing for the consumer to get under the hood and see if they're hiring somebody that is trustworthy, has taken the necessary
Yeah.
training.
Yeah. And if they don't have any connection, right, or they're just totally picking from the phone book type thing, that
Exactly,
yeah, that there
exactly.
is some standard there that can help people be like, okay, well, I know I am at least getting someone who has studied this, is aware of this, and
Hmm.
yeah, I the difference between a coach and a really helpful friend.
Mm.
um, if we all had those really helpful friends, well, we probably wouldn't even need counselors, or we
Yeah,
wouldn't need coaches. But you know, we don't all have that space in our life, and we don't all have that experience. And my story is we all need those inputs.
yeah,
Loving, understanding, grace filled, leading towards joy, and supporting individual people to move to. And let me make an I statement there. I need that.
Yeah, yeah, me
I'll
too.
tend to just float in a tube down the river and just wherever the
Yeah.
current carries me, unless
Mhm.
I have a coach or I have a group or someone who's actively saying, yeah, do you want to reach anywhere? Or are you happy just to float? And
Yeah,
so that's
absolutely.
been some of the help for me. What were a couple of the really helpful things for you in coaching, in your own, doing the coach, the kind of maybe you wouldn't have gotten to on your own without a coach's help?
Well, probably stepping into me myself becoming a coach
Oh wow,
and starting that, on a very, very small scale. I
absolutely.
say I say that because my boss might be listening. So, um, no, and I'm still very involved in my team at work, and I love the company I work for, and I love my group.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm very fortunate in that, and so
Mm,
I'm not in a space where I have to make any decisions right now, or I'm able to, and they give me enough space. I'm using my own time for the most part, and
hmm.
it's off hours, and I try to keep the two separate, and going back to that balance word. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I've started my own small practice or business, and um, with my company, I had to report that,
Yeah.
so they're aware of that.
They
So
they didn't initially just go after you for that. That
no,
seemed to go
no,
okay. Yeah.
yeah. So Fidelity in any financial services firm, you have to report outside business activities.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's just kind of the oversight of our
Yeah.
industry of financial services, which
I'm,
is great because it keeps everyone's hands are on the table. We can see what people are doing.
I was gonna
So,
say I'm sure there are good stories for why those rules exist.
uh,
Yeah.
yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. So it's all good there, and yeah. So yeah, that's been probably in the last year or so. I've hired a great website designer
Okay.
who's helped me, but she's also helped me with social media. Yeah, I can't thank her enough.
Mm.
She's in an age category and a generation that's much more how do I say fluid with the use of
Yeah.
some of the tools a guy at my advanced stage maybe is not so
Yeah.
not so nimble with. So,
The non-shaming term I believe is digital native. Just
okay.
like if you're a digital
That's good.
native, it can make more sense.
Okay.
Everything comes up. Yeah, and
Yeah.
absolutely, I have some of those, and there it's just so impressive. The people who have helped us do some things that are digital
Really. Yeah.
natives. It's just like,
Yeah.
gosh, amazing. Okay, so this kind of puts you on the spot. But as a coach for the Crucible work you've done, for the strengths work that you've done, what do you feel like kind of your ideal clients or your greatest strengths that you could give your clients as a coach?
Just to I want to be clear that
Yeah.
so you're saying and Crucible coaching. I haven't completed that process yet. I'm in the
Okay.
middle of it.
Gotcha.
So if
That
Byron's listening, I'm not taking clients right now.
you're not on the Crucible website, right?
I'm
To
not
be
on no,
hired
or the
yet.
payroll or anything. No, no. But I am working towards that. So, and that's been a lot of fun too. Yeah, Byron's has taken a group of us, this cohort this year, probably 10 of us, and is training us on coaching kind of the Crucible way. So,
Yeah.
and again, I'm learning a lot of there. I'm learning some of the processes that are familiar to some Crucible people that
Hmm.
apply in a coaching uh, setting. I would say one of the biggest gifts, and I've been thinking more and more about implementing strengths in the practice is I find I was certainly guilty of this, but I do find that people don't lean into their strengths or
Mm.
how God's wired them. And for a lot of people, that's just something that they haven't taken the time to do. Um, and so I do feel like that's going through a strengths program with somebody is so beneficial, and they always come out just the world makes more sense, and they
Hmm.
don't necessarily change or there's nothing drastic, but it's like okay, I wonder why I hated that job for 12 years back in the 90s, because that is just not how
Interesting.
I'm
Yeah.
made. that wasn't how it, but I'm doing this job that uses all of my, my top 4 or 5 strengths or a couple of my strengths. I'm like, you know, people talk about their, whatever they do for a profession doesn't feel like profession. It feels that
Yeah.
that's how they're made. Um, and so I think, one of the big areas of coaching is helping people unpack that and lean more into their strengths and try to learn how to manage weaknesses rather than spending all the time we like to do on, okay, identify those weaknesses, and then we're going to spend all this time, and you're really never, you're not going to move a weakness to a strength. You'll move a weakness maybe to like a middling level, maybe get a little bit better at it. But like, I'm never going to be an artist, right?
Hmm.
I'm going to draw stick figures probably until I'm 80. Is that just now? Maybe somebody could come alongside, and I could get some tips, and I could be like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but am I ever going to be a great artist?
Hmm.
No. Yeah. So yeah, it's things like that. Just
Yeah,
helping them find their true calling.
I love that. Well, as we wrap up here, is there anything else that you want to say about your the coaching or your relationship in Crucible, your the groups you're in now, the weekend? I mean, we covered a lot of ground. Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Well, one thing I just wanted to thank you for that. I wanted to circle back with coaching.
Mm-hmm.
We started talking about there's other areas, there's so many great resources out there, and just it's so important to point out that every discipline, it has its strengths, and um, I have I have a resource, and certainly people can reach out to me if they want to look at this resource, but it's a great resource that talks about all the differing disciplines there are that people can find help. So think of a counselor, psychiatrist, maybe a 12-step group,
Mm-hmm.
but think of anything that is supportive or helping people move forward. And there's mentors, there's spiritual directors, and I would say just if people are interested in this area, just research and learn about the different disciplines and how coaching can possibly fit into where they're at this life. And because people are generally looking to improve some area of their life, so whether that's diet and exercise, I mean that's a real simple example, or they're struggling with a career, they feel like a fish out of water, um, they're not going well with their spouse or really their important relationships. So
Yeah.
yeah, coaching
Yeah.
coaching can cover a wide berth, but there's also other, it's not the only one. There's plenty of great resources out there.
Hmm. Yeah, and that to me sounds like safety, right? It's like, hey,
Yeah,
this is
yeah,
not the one and only thing. Um,
exactly.
this can be helpful. Yeah, to put that in, one of the things you were talking about career-wise, just that idea of, feel like I'm going to work every day. Like, oh, I, there's a part of my job, and I imagine I've talked to other people who are like, is that even possible? Is that even really a thing?
I know, right?
Yeah,
I
and to figure out the strengths and to line all those up, yeah, what a beautiful and powerful way to do it. And then, I think there's a lot of layers that I've seen in the business world, a lot of constructs. Man, I love a good construct of a way to see the world, and
Sure.
um, the yeah the crucible, the soul work,
Mm,
is a good title. I think is a
right.
uh, very rare and has been so impactful for me
Yeah,
at,
absolutely.
at that level of work. And I love that you have done that work, still doing that work, and
Yes.
bringing that into the into all the other areas that you'll coach in. So
Like my wife likes to say, I'm a slow learner. So anyway,
you bring it all in. Well, and that is one other thing that popped up for me as we were going through this is like there, we can learn things quickly, but it just takes time to develop. And mature, and I'm appreciating that at a whole new level. Maybe being in the longer you're in the fire, right, the more forged I feel. The longer I'm in the fire, the more forged I feel. And when I'm reaching out to coaches, reaching out to other leaders, I appreciate so much the maturity and the time that they've taken to do that, and to help me grow also. So I salute you for getting that feedback and still moving forward, and for taking this time
Awesome.
to get in here. So yeah, any final word before we sign off here?
No. If anyone has questions about an initial week, and I am ready, willing, and available.
Okay. Well, say thank you very much. Appreciate your time, Keith. Love being on here with you. And bye for now.
All right, Jake. Bye. Thank you very much.
For more information about our weekends, please go to thecrucibleproject.org. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Rate and review wherever you are listening, and subscribe on your preferred podcast platform. Also, don't forget to check out myjourney2.com for your free 2-week trial. That's myjourneyto.com. Thank you for listening.